guys. So I've got Chase Russell here, and we're going to be talking about the school board races and things that happened on Tuesday night. But before I begin, he and I were just chatting because I had done an AI rendition of Flagler County School Board asking, I did a prompt asking who were to rank our school board candidates and school board members on their view of conservatism. And people, of course, my haters, they're coming out saying all kinds of crazy stuff. Not exactly sure, but every now and then somebody will send me something that's crazy and I'll start laughing. But what they didn't do, Chase, get this. So I did this rendition of who is the most conservative, or just not even the most conservative. I just put in a prompt asking to rate the school board members on conservatism here in Flagler County. And people have been flipping out. But guess what they didn't do? They didn't put that prompt in their AI and say my AI was wrong. They just said I was wrong. What go say you on that one?
Well, I think people don't understand how AI works. AI scrubs the entire internet and finds the most relevant sources and puts it in there. So if your sources are saying that you're not a conservative, then you're not a conservative, according to the internet.
According to the internet. It wasn't me. I didn't even put people's names in there. My prompt literally said, rate the current school board members and the school board candidates on their level of conservatism. And that's what they came up with.
I would be keen to see, let's do a case study on this. Everybody go on ChatGPT and punch the same prompt in, and let's see what it pumps out. A lot of people, I will say a lot of people this election cycle did the same thing. They went and asked Claude the whole nine, asked them what they were, who's the most conservative candidate.
A lot of people, that's what made me do that. A lot of people were doing that when they couldn't figure out who to vote for, right?
That's whoever's got the best digital presidents at that point.
Well, pretty much. I mean, yeah. So we're going to be talking about school board races. Who will control Florida classrooms? School choice, school boards, and the political battle ahead. So that's going to be our show today. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be great. And I love it. One of the things, victory for Congressman Byron Donalds. I am so thrilled and so very excited about Congressman Byron Donalds being a Republican nominee for the state of Florida for governor. And I'm grateful that Flagler County voted for Congressman Byron above the other candidates in the race, even though there were some people in my party, they were cheating. I don't want to say cheating. That's the wrong word. They were giving unfair advantages to other people. I'll put it to you that way, to their candidate of choice. I wouldn't call that cheating. That was, and Byron still pulled it out. He still pulled it out. So I'm excited about that.
He ran a great campaign. I mean, across the state, I like his line. I think I posted it on X the other day. I like his line where he says, "I don't respond to foolishness." And I think if more people did that,
he got that from me.
Did he get it from you? I would not.
Probably because I've said that multiple times. I get time. Yeah, I don't.
I think if more people came with it, what's great about Byron winning the way he did is. You can claim that he had this advantage, that advantage. He ran a clean campaign. He ran a good campaign.
He did.
Fishback, and I hate even saying his name. He came out and he just went attack. And Americans and Floridians are sick of that. Stop attacking. It doesn't do you any good. And for him to say the Byron thing and be just honestly blatantly racist, it's not good for politics as a whole. It's not good for the country as a whole, and I think we need to move away from that 100%. So I'm glad Byron came out with a big old win.
Oh, I saw you at the victory party on Tuesday. That was fun.
Yeah,
that was really fun. I tell you, I was exhausted, but on Wednesday, the entire campaign team, we went to Universal as a team bonding experience. And that was really nice. It was very nice to see Byron and his wife and, the rest of the campaign staff out there. And we were just, riding roller coasters and, just decompressing from the last 18 months because he started 18 months ago. So just a genuine guy and just grateful for the state of Florida. But we're going to be talking about school board today because, as you know, in Flagler County, Joe Woolbright, we're not going to even be talking about that race. I just want to have this conversation real quick. But Joe Woolbright lost her race to a Democrat. Will Furry, he lost his race to a Republican, but according to chat, a lesser conservative. and Christy Chong is up against what AI is calling a lesser conservative. I mean, I don't have anything against either one of the Republicans that are running, but you can tell by their online presence when you put it in AI, they pull all the information. For example, we know that Trevor Tucker, he voted 3 times to mask our students. Well, of course, that's not going to appeal to Republicans so much, but the liberals are going to love that because they don't particularly care. But you know what? Hey, Republicans are falling for a whole lot of stuff. We had several people. This one guy was sick to his stomach. He thought he had voted for a Republican and didn't find out till later that it was Kathy Moon. There's a lot of Republicans in Flagler County that are vomiting and throwing up. But kudos to them for school board. What I love is that I'm very good friends with Joe Wilbright and very good friends with Will Furry. And I'm going to be honest with you, Chase. It's going to be tough on that school board, with the voucher program. But we're going to talk about that. Let me get started on my show. It's going to be real tough. They dodged a bullet. They really dodged a bullet because I'm expecting the next school board are going to have to be laying some people off. So here we go. All right. Here we go. Good morning. Good morning. Wake up. Good morning. Rise and shine. It's a brand new day, and you're tuned in with Today with Pastor Jay on WNZF News Radio. I am your host, Pastor Geraldine Denny, and every week we bring you conversations that strengthen faith, challenge the way you think, and help us understand what is happening in our communities, our state, and our nation. And today I want to talk about something that I think may be much bigger than one election. Florida just came through its August 18th primary election, and some of the races that caught my attention weren't for governor or Congress or the legislature. They were school board races. In Sarasota County, a conservative majority that had controlled the school board since 2022 was effectively flipped after 2 candidates defeated conservative opponents. And similar battles played across the state of Florida. And it got me thinking, at the exact same time that conservatives are fighting over the direction of public schools, Florida has created one of the largest school choice systems in America. Hundreds of thousands of Florida students are now receiving a scholarship that allows families to choose private schools, Christian schools, personalized education programs, and other alternatives. So here's the question I want us to wrestle with today. Are conservatives fighting to control a public school system that many conservative families are simultaneously leaving? And if the money follows the child, what happens to public school systems when enough children leave? More importantly, politically, what happens to school board elections when parents who are most concerned about curriculum, parental rights, gender policy, books, and school culture simply remove their children instead of remaining engaged? My guest today is uniquely positioned to talk about it. That is Chase Russell, a political strategist, president of Great Eagle Strategies, founder of Right Reach, co-founder of Omni Media Group, and the author of his new book, Winning Without Millions, a framework for modern grassroots campaign. His works involve campaigns, voter behavior, digital strategy, messaging, grassroots organizing, and understand what actually moves voters. But guess what? He's a homeschool dad. How about that? So Chase, welcome to Today with Pastor Jay.
PJ, it's always a great time to be on with you. And I couldn't agree more with what you said. I think this election cycle was one for the books. We saw a lot of races across the entire state flip. I think as a homeschool dad, I think you see a lot of parents, they're moving to control their own curriculum. They don't care who's on that school board. And the voter turnout across the state was so low, not even just Flagler County. I know we're talking about Flagler County right now, but just across the state, Sarasota County, Hillsborough, all the way down into Lee and Collier. There was extremely low voter turnout, and parents are just not turning out to vote for school board because they don't care. They're homeschooling their kids. You've got the Step Up for Students scholarship. You've got all of these things. It's so much so, and if you're not familiar with the Step Up for Students scholarship, it's basically you get your tax money back. If you're a property owner, you pay in the property taxes, which go to the school. You get a portion of it back to fund your children's homeschool. All 3 of my kids use it. It's not welfare or anything like that. It's your tax dollars you get back, and you get to fund your own homeschool program. Now, with a program like that in the state of Florida, good on Ron DeSantis for promoting that.
Hmm.
But you see a lot of parents that are taking their children out of school and not caring about the school board races. So what we're doing though as a conservative movement is we're giving up ground in the schools for liberals to come into the state, register as Republicans, or do whatever is claim they're conservative, this, that, and the other. But in the reality of it, they're extreme liberals. They're coming in with a woke ideology, and that needs to be combated. Even if your kids don't go to that school, my kids aren't in the school. I'm still voting for school board. I'm still doing my research. I'm still going out and making sure that we're fighting the good fight, because where the kids go, the culture goes. And that's extremely important.
Well, most people just don't care anymore. I've spoken to people, they pulled their children out of school. I've been saying for years that the public school system does not produce after our kind. And when I say after our kind, I mean conservative Christians. Public school system just isn't doing that. So I'm seeing parents now pull their children out. I know parents that have never placed their child in a school. In fact, in Flagler County, and I'm sure if we look throughout the state of Florida, it used to be that the incoming kindergarten class was larger than the graduating senior class. Not anymore. The incoming kindergarten and public school system is shrinking smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. When we look at Sarasota, you mentioned it. I don't think that was an isolated event. Did you see something else Tuesday night that conservatives across Florida should be paying attention to?
I mean, there's a liberal ideology that's sweeping. Even with Florida having a 1.5 million voter surplus, when you have such a low turnout, just numbers wise, when you have such a low turnout and the Democrats are funding millions and millions of dollars into these races, into school board races, and they're promoting a specific candidate, they're falling behind. And Democrats are good at this. I'm not gonna ignore the fact that they're good at strategy on this end, but they're funding very specific candidates in very specific races just to win. Their strategy is good. This is across the state. There were House districts that flipped. There were multiple Senate districts that flipped. There were multiple commissioner seats that flipped. It is across the state, across the board. Florida is under attack from the woke ideology and the Democrat movement. And I dare say probably the DSA. I think the DSA is starting to come down here to Florida, and we're the next stomping ground. They took New York last year. They're going to continue to move into larger influence places, and they're going to start with your kids. They're going to start with your kids in school. And there's a reason parents aren't putting their 5, 6-year-old kids into a school when there's books that are talking about basically pornography. I'm not going to put my kid there. You shouldn't put your kid there. And the more school board seats that get flipped, again, we are losing ground when it comes to the culture wars that are going on in our school. And I feel bad. I genuinely feel bad for the parents that, might not be as advantaged and have the ability to homeschool. But
Or don't even know that they can place their child in a private school. I just spoke with a homeschool mom today. She's been homeschooling all three of her children for years. She didn't even know there were money available to her, nevertheless, money to place them in a private school.
yeah, no,
Most
well,
most parents don't know.
the question becomes, one, how do we educate these parents on their options? What are the options? Obviously, if you don't want your kid in public school, and two, how do we actually combat this as a party, as a conservative movement? And I won't even say the Republican Party. I'm gonna say the conservative movement. How do
Mhm.
we start standing up for these? Because what I saw across the state, this isn't any particular thing. Republican executive committees, conservative committees across the entire state, and even up to the state party level, they weren't active enough when it comes down to actually standing. They thought, hey, we have a $1.5 million or a 5 point voter surplus. We're going to ride that wave and we're going to be just fine. And they found out real quick that that's not the case. So there
Mm-mm.
needs to be a serious changing of the guard, changing the strategy at the state level, and at the local levels, where we need to start really combating these things.
Groups on the political left are celebrating the election as a rejection of Moms for Liberty, conservative school policies, and what they are calling politicizing of education. Do you agree with that interpretation, or something more complicating has happened now?
I think education's always been politicized. There's a reason you elect school board members. That's politics.
Right.
I would agree that there has been a rejection. I think the Democrats did one of probably one of the best misinformation campaigns they probably could have done at the state level. And they tried it here and it worked. So you can guarantee come next election cycle, when other school board seats are up across the country, they're going to try and do the same thing. And they're going to keep going and keep going and keep going. And they're going to change the culture, and they're just going to keep getting school board seats elected. Now, the reason the Moms for Liberty thing, why are we not fighting back? Why do we not see more moms stepping up? I think moms are tired of fighting this ideology.
They pulled their kids out of public school.
Yeah,
Because let me tell you what's going to happen. And guess what? I'm not saying I don't care, but I don't have any children in the school system anymore. But I had people that I respected that were on the school board, that I supported on the school board. So I kind of kept quiet about it, but not so much anymore. So I really just want to tell every conservative parent out there, pull your kids out of public school. Let them have it. Because guess what? They're not going to have any money before long, because the money is following the child. So pull your child and put them in Christian schools, private schools that are following what you desire for your child to learn, because ultimately the parent is the first educator for the child. So if you have your child in a public school system and they sit up there with a woke liberal board, let them have it. Let them celebrate it. Let them educate their own, and let all the conservatives and all the Republicans pull their kids out of the public school system. Now, that may not be popular to most, but guess what? That's exactly what's going to happen. Let them fight to keep that crap. Let them have all that junk, because if they want their kids to go to school, this is one thing I truly believe in: parental rights. If you want your child to read a book on pornography, that is your option, your choice. I don't want my children reading that. So if you want to create a school system that has that by nominating and electing all these woke individuals and the leftist agenda and liberalism as part of our school system, let them have it. Keep it to yourself. And those that are conservatives, that are Republican, pull your kids out of school, take the money and go somewhere else where they can educate your kid. I got to take a break. Don't go anywhere, guys. Don't touch that dial. You're listening to Today with Pastor Jay. All right. We're going to come back in, Mark. And we're going to come back in. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back to Today with Pastor Jay and Chase. Here's what I think this conversation gets fascinating, right? So Florida school choice program, we've talked about it. It has grown dramatically. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of children now receiving state-supported educational options outside of a traditional district classroom. There are private school scholarships, Christian school accepting scholarships. There's a personalized education program where parents essentially direct an education savings account for their child's education. And Florida's own 2026-2027 anticipates nearly 500,000 students participating in the Family Empowerment Scholarship Program. That's no longer a little alternative education program here. That's a major educational marketplace now. Is Florida quietly moving from a system where government primarily provides education to one government funds education and parents increasingly choose who provides it? The phrase is, the money follows the child, right? So are we moving towards that, you think?
I sure hope so.
I hope we're running. I hope we're running towards it.
I would argue, and I'm going to say something controversial, I'd argue that we don't need a public education system. Why is the government funding what are we teaching our kids? For instance, evolution in schools. Why are we teaching kids evolution? That's a religion, whether you want it or not. Everybody wants to go up in arms about teaching, the Pledge of Allegiance, or they go about praying in schools, or this, that, and the other. When you're teaching an entire religion through evolution right there. So why are we having a entire system built around everybody's on the same playing field, no child left behind, test scores are the only thing that matters, that's the only way we get funding? You've built an entire system that doesn't make any sense in itself. Now, again, I homeschool my kids, and I've got my 13-year-old daughter speaks 2 languages. She reads at a 12th grade reading level. She's, people say, okay, your kids are, there's no social interaction. My kids can actually have a conversation with an adult. You want to know why? Because they spend all day talking to adults. They're prepared for the outside world. What public education teaches kids, and this is a soapbox that I'm going to go on. What public education teaches kids is the fact that They are workers that they get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and they go to work, and then they get a lunch break, and then they spend 45 minutes in the classroom, and then they switch a class, and the teacher only gets about 15 minutes. And guess what they're doing? And I know this. I know what they're doing because when I got out of the military, I was a substitute teacher for a while. I was in the classrooms. They spend the entire time on an iPad. If I was going to send my kid to spend the entire time on the iPad, why doesn't he do it at my kitchen table? Why don't they do it at my kitchen table and do it, or do it in their room? Why would I send them to a class so they can hang out with a bunch of other kids and have the same mentality? Then why do we have a public education system, really? So yeah, I don't necessarily agree with you on the sense that we should just give up the fight for school board. I think that ideology needs.
I didn't say give up the fight. I said just let them have it.
I think two sides of that coin. I think that there is, I think we need to fight this terrible ideology that is influencing and teaching kids how to be democratic socialists, and teaching kids that communism's okay, and that it's worked. It just hasn't worked in the right spot. Go down to Miami and you talk to half the people in Miami and you ask them if socialism and communism works. I guarantee they'll tell you hell no. So we can't fall into the New York where we just throw up our hands and give up. I think we need to keep fighting, but I think we need to fight smarter.
Financially, what does that mean to a local school district when hundreds of thousands of children leave? So we've already seen evidence of the pressure. A Florida Auditor General report dealing with Broward County documented an unexpected enrollment decline of more than 5,500 students and an estimated $45 million revenue impact. Universal vouchers were identified as one of the factors affecting enrollment. Is this the beginning of something Florida school districts are going to have to confront statewide? I said earlier that I'm grateful that my good friends Jill Wilbright and Will Furry are not going to have to deal with that, because the money's not going to be there for these teachers, which is unfortunate. Now, those are the ones that's going to be really being hit. These teachers that have gone to school, have gotten an education, they get a job with this school system, and they think their job's going to be protected. But all of a sudden, there's a mass exodus right now out of the public school system. They're going to have to cut corners somewhere, and it's going to start with salaries.
Yeah, you've already seen it across the state. I've got plenty of friends that are teachers. I talk to teachers all the time. They're losing their jobs left and right, or they're quitting. They see the writing on the wall. Teachers aren't dumb. They're probably some of the smartest people around. They see the writing on the wall and they say, hey, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go homeschool my kids. I talked to 3 teachers this morning doing the same thing. Hey, I'm out. I'm going to go homeschool my kids. The incoming school boards across the state are going to have a bad time. They're going to have to deal with not only their dollars being lowered, their budgets being lowered with Amendment 3 that's going to be on the ballot. They're going to have to deal with teacher salaries getting cut. They're going to have to deal with lack of students. I think, and don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it's about $22,000 to $26,000 a school year for a student, one student. So every student that leaves that school is losing $26,000. Now, the Step Up for Students scholarship that is for homeschool kids or private, you're only getting about $8,000. So the state's making up a little bit of that money that they can put back into it. But in the reality of it, you're losing a lot of money from those school boards. So they're going to have to figure out something. And to be entirely honest with you, I saw some of the people that got elected around the state, and I don't think they're equipped to handle that.
Many conservative Christian parents spent years fighting school boards over curriculum, over gender ideology, books, parental rights, masks, discipline, and other issues. And Florida essentially told those parents, you don't have to keep fighting. Take your education dollars and put your child somewhere else. So they did, right? But if conservative families leave the public school system, could they also become less politically engaged in school board elections? I think that's what we saw just happen, that they just less politically engaged and they're tired of the fight. They're like, okay, whatever. Could conservatives actually win the battle for school choice while losing influence over the institutions that they leave behind?
I think you are seeing a parental disengagement. I think you're going to continue to see that. They get tired of constantly having to fight and fight and fight just to get some foothold at the school board. Then you've got 5, 6, 7 members up there on a school board across the state that you've every 2 years, 4 years, you've got to keep fighting and fighting and fighting. Why not just pull your kid out, You get to spend time with them. Hopefully, you still have a 2 income home because it's so expensive here to live in Florida. If you don't, hopefully your husband or your wife makes enough for you to be a 1 income home. But I go back to my original statement. We need to be asking ourselves, is this the best system of education in the United States? And are we actually doing a service to our kids, or are we just pawning them off to a daycare that's named the public school system? It's as
Mm.
simple as that.
Wow. There is something that concerns me because even if a child attends a Christian school or a child is homeschooled, the public school system still educates millions of Florida's children. And those children will become voters, right? Those children, they become teachers. They're going to become business owners. They're going to become government officials. They shape the culture. So can Christians or conservatives really afford to say, my child is out, therefore I don't care what happens there anymore? They can't really afford to do that anymore.
Yeah, I think.
Because those are going to be the voters. They're the ones eventually going to grow up to shape society. And here's another assumption I want to test. We sometimes talk as though school choice is exclusively a conservative movement, but scholarship participation, they cross racial, economic, and probably political lines. I'm pretty sure they do. Could school choice essentially become less of a Republican versus Democrat issue and more of a parent versus the system issue?
I think it's already a parent versus system. I mean, for parents that aren't very politically inclined, I think it's already a establishment issue. Is, hey, I just don't want my kids in school. I want my kids with me. I want them learning from me. I want them in my culture and everything along the lines of that. I think, it just doesn't make any sense for a lot of these parents to send them into a school. And the sad part about it is you're almost by having a public school system like this that's set up, you're disenfranchising an entire population of kids. For instance, if you have a two-person income household where both parents have to be working, so there's no ability to homeschool, or they can't afford private school or anything along the lines of that, you're now basically saying, hey, you have to go to a public school. And with less money now in that public school and more kids in the public school, I genuinely feel bad. And I think over the next 4, 5, 6 years, we're going to start to see this decline in the quality of education that these kids are getting at a public school. And it's honestly pretty sad. It's sad that these kids are just going to come out and they're going to graduate, and maybe they go to college, maybe not. Maybe they don't want to go to college, but at least go into a trade or something along the lines of that. It's sad. It's a sad thing all around. And I'm terrified to see what the next 4 or 5 years are going to look like for the education system.
All right, guys, we got to take a break. And today's episode of Today with Pastor Jay is brought to you by Great Eagle Strategies, Gerald Ministries, Church on the Rock, and Judah One Aviation. And family, remember, if you miss a broadcast, you can catch the show rewind on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X. When we come back, we're going to bring politics and the education issue together because November is coming. And Chase literally wrote the book on how campaigns without millions of dollars can win. What should conservative school board candidates learn before November? Those that are going to the runoff, don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. You're listening to Today with Pastor Jay. Alrighty, we're back. We've got about maybe three minutes when we come back. All right, welcome back. Chase, your new book is called Winning Without Millions, a framework for modern grassroots campaigns. And one of the themes running through the book is that campaigns don't necessarily need enormous war chests if they understand voters, messaging, grassroots organizations, and digital communications and momentum. So school board races seem almost tailor-made for that model, right? So what are school board candidates still doing the old way that simply doesn't work anymore?
Well, we just talked about in the beginning. I mean, as far as AI, most people are doing their research through AI, and that's a pretty simple solution to getting found on AI and getting your name out there and actually building an audience based on that. Traditionally, and I saw this across the entire state this last election, a week or so ago, there's too many signs. The signs don't win elections anymore. The large texting platforms and stuff, and hit campaigns in themselves. Hit campaigns don't work. It's not a good strategy to just go out and attack and attack and attack. You need to run on solid plans. You need to build a movement behind you. Is it a longer strategy? Yeah. Anybody can come in and dump 100,000, 200,000 into a school board race and buy everything and have all the fancy stuff and all the technology. But at the end of the day, that's not building a movement. And people go to the ballot box because they believe in a candidate, and the get out the vote is because they believe in the candidate. They're willing to volunteer for you because they believe in the candidate, they believe in the ideas, and they think it's going to actually change. And really, that's what the book's about is you don't need to spend millions of dollars to win. You just need to have a really good message and a really good movement backing you.
And how can people get your book?
You can head over to chaserussellofficial.com/book and you can order it there. Send me a message too. I love talking to candidates. I love talking to people that are into politics. So you can shoot me a message on there as well.
So let's ask the last question. Who controls the school board? Or maybe the bigger question is, will the school board still control education? If education dollars increasingly belong to the student rather than the institution, and parents can choose public schools, charter schools, private school, Christian school, virtual education, homeschool, or personalized education, what does Florida education look like 10 years from now?
Whatever it looks like, I'm afraid to see it. But I think, parents are in control of their children's education. And I think more people are waking up to that fact. They're seeing society as a whole and culture as a whole going downhill. Even if you're not political, even if I talk to people all the time that, they want to talk to me about politics because obviously I'm in it, but they're not political at all. They don't really care, to be honest with you. They've got a 9 to 5, they work. They've got other things in their life to be worried about, and good for them. I wish I didn't have to watch the news 24 hours a day. They're disengaged in that sense, but they still understand that the culture in the United States and that there's a downturn, that there's people trying to indoctrinate their kids, and therefore they become political without even knowing it. I see over the next 10 years, we are going to have more parents going polar to one side or the other. And we're going to have a bunch of homeschooled kids running around that I believe are going to do just fine.
They're going to do just fine. Well, Chase, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Our scripture today comes from Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And I chose that verse intentionally because whether your child attends public school, private school, Christian school, charter school, virtual school, homeschool, Christians cannot afford to become uninformed or disengaged. Leaving an institution is one decision. Abandoning influence is another. School choice gives parents the ability to determine where their child are educated, but civic responsibility still requires for us to still care about all children and make sure all children are educated responsibly. All right, Chase, thanks again for joining us and for helping us look beyond one election and think about where education and politics may be heading in the state of Florida. And family, here's something I want you to think about. Maybe the question isn't simply whether you choose the right school for your child. Maybe the question is whether you are still helping shape the community your child will eventually inherit. So school choice matters. Parental rights matter, election matter, engagement matter, because democracy doesn't stop at the schoolhouse door simply because your child attends another school. And you know what I say? Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow's not promised. What are you going to do today? Today, you're going to go to Chase Russell's website, chaserussellofficial.com, and get his new book, Winning Without Means. God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, PJ.
No worries. All right, guys, that was good conversation. I mean, I was looking at, let me see, I pulled up some stats somewhere, and it really blew my mind about schools. I mean, come on. Florida, 500,000 students participate in the Family Empowerment Scholarship Program. They're going to be gone. I mean, they're not in school system. That's 500,000 kids out of public school system in the state of Florida.
Fact check me on how much it is for a student, because I read this from like 2024, I think. How much is it per student in the state?
I think you were right. I think you were
like
close.
26,000 per year.
They get so much a quarter. And
yeah,
there's like
break
3
it down
quarters.
Quarter, but for the school year, it comes out to be like 26,000. So imagine, I mean, if you've got,
and if you have an ESC student, you get more money.
Right. So it could be, I mean, you're talking millions of dollars out of the budget instantly.
Yeah, I heard something the other day. I was speaking with a candidate. I can't remember, a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember which one it was. And they were saying, because the largest landowner in the state of Florida government landowner are public school systems.
Yeah, there's
Think
so
about that.
many of them.
Yeah, because they buy land in anticipation of growth in communities, thinking they're going to have to build new schools. So, guess what's happening if they're not building new schools? They're going to have to get rid of that land. Hmm.
I wonder how much they're selling it for.
I know, right? I know. Well, God
I'll
bless
go
you.
ask
One
them,
thing
man.
I hope doesn't happen, because we have a phenomenal superintendent. They better lock her down. Because if I were her, I'd be running like it ain't nobody business out of Flagler County schools.
Well,
But
that's the
we'll
thing
see.
too, is you've got, I mean, across the state, you've got really great educators. I mean, this is not,
Hmm.
you've got great superintendents, you've got great educators, great teachers. That's sad. It's sad for them that you're going to have to lay people off, because what other, I mean, what are you going to reduce lunches? You're going to not serve kids food or something? Like where's
Well,
your,
they already get free lunch and free, free breakfast now. They
yeah.
all
So
get
now,
free
okay, so now
breakfast.
you make kids
Yeah.
start paying for lunches at that point. So it's like,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
do you cut budget as far as the school system goes without cutting a salary? That's your
Well,
largest expense.
I would probably say administration.
Maybe you're still cutting salaries. You're still cutting
Yeah,
people
you
from
are.
jobs. And
Would you have to cut something? Hey, look, it's unfortunate. But you know what? Parents have been advocating for smaller school class sizes for a minute. So I guess we're getting it now. I guess we're getting it now.
No, they're
Thank
just
you
going
so
to cut
much.
teachers and put more kids in the same classroom.
Oh,
That's what's
well,
sad about. Again, there's not a win on that one.
you mentioned something earlier about some of the school board candidates that have been elected or potentially will be elected, that they're not qualified for the jobs. Can you imagine? Can you imagine them trying to balance a budget they have no idea how to balance?
Yeah,
It's
they're going to be more worried about having a certain parade down the hallway or something along the lines of that, instead of actually making sure my kids get educated. Not my kids, but other kids.
Yeah,
Um,
it's gonna be interesting. Interesting. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. God bless
Absolutely.
you.
Anytime. See you, PJ.
All right, bye bye.